Hello, guys. I think we are live. Let me just check the YouTube to be sure. I think so. There it is. Perfect. Oh, God. Now it's coming through my. Oh, God. Kill it. Kill it now. There we go. I'm a boomer sometimes, so I don't actually know what I'm doing, and that probably came through a horrible echo. Right. I am here with Wick TV, who I did not warn beforehand that I am a boomer with tech. So, Wick, if you want to kind of tell us real quick who you are, what you do, and most importantly, how you got into Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure. Well, I'm Wick. I run a politics talk show called Wick TV. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not have. Either way, I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and recently I reached out to Harmony, who was kind enough to join me on my stream, and she invited me to talk on her stream, and that's what we'll be doing today about Dungeons and Dragons. So, how did I get into Dungeons and Dragons? Well, I was a child, okay, way back in the day. I know I'm pretty old, but about 32 years ago, right? I'm 40, so when I was about 8 years old, um, a friend of mine who was a little older invited us all to a sleepover, and he wanted to play a game called Dungeons and Dragons. And I had no idea what that was, but I thought dragons were cool and dungeons sounded cool. So why not? Let's get into it. What followed was wouldn't you probably wouldn't recognize it as a game of Dungeons and Dragons, but our little child hearts tried our best, and I was kind of hooked. I really enjoyed the concept. I enjoyed the concept of being another character, being a heroic figure, and going through and just slaying monsters, killing demons, getting loot. That was all fun. So that's how I initially got into it, and it's been a path ever since. So yeah.
Yeah, so you've been playing a lot longer than I have. I actually started after I was an adult. I wasn't really allowed to play as a kid. But
Oh, were you raised religious?
yes, yeah, I was.
Mm.
As I think many of us are. I think that's actually a fairly common story. But you're actually fairly new to the online D&D sphere. I've noticed. I had never actually seen your name before before you
Many such
messaged
cases,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, you messaged me and you're like, "Hey, you want to be on this this thing?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds fun." But so I checked out your channel and I didn't see anything that had to do with RPGs at all. It was completely just politics. And I was like, oh no, what am I getting into? So I know you've been kind of in the politics sphere for a while and you're kind of just recently branching out into the RPG sphere online. Is that an accurate statement?
Fairly accurate, though. I suppose there's always been some overlap between these things. There's a lot of political commentary, and I'm sure you've seen it in the RPG side of things and the TTRPG side of things, where politics and gaming have kind of enmeshed themselves in recent years. So there's a lot to dissect and discuss within gaming communities, not just tabletop gaming, but electronic gaming and other communities, and how that has kind of impacted things and how it's continuing to impact things. So, like that show that we did a couple weeks ago now, it wasn't the first time I've had a topic about Dungeons and Dragons specifically, or about representation in media, representation in gaming, and these things. I've done that a few times, and I figured, you know what? Why not? It's coming up again. What with the Gamergate 2 stuff? Why not try this angle? So yeah, that's where we are.
What was your first debate on Dungeons and Dragons? I'm curious because I know the two I were in was
Mhm.
one was racism and sexism in D&D, and one was dice fudging and following the rules. What was your first? Because I
Our
didn't know about
Yeah,
that.
sure. This was years ago.
Okay.
And again, this was before I had my YouTube channel when I just was on
Oh.
Twitch. So again, those videos are lost to time.
Mhm.
Are orcs black people? That was a debate. Uh,
Oh, yeah, I think that one came back up in the D&D discussion
yeah,
recently.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
No, okay.
makes it rears its head every now and again. Like these are all cyclical topics.
They are.
They're very much not new. What is new is the people who have kind of I don't want to. this is going to sound inflammatory, but it is what it is. They've kind of stolen this narrative, right? And they've hijacked it in order to uh, change the game in ways that they find more appealing, appeasing, whatever you want to say. And it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And before, again, there was a strong guard against that kind of stuff. We kind of laughed them off. But they have made a lot of inroads recently, especially with WotC and things like that. And yeah, it is what it is. But here we are.
Okay. I think I can follow that. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down here. Um, and I do have a question about that, though.
Please.
You've had a lot of experience in the politics sphere. Like, I was looking at your channel, and it's like page after page of debates, and they're all pretty contentious topics. So, what was it like going from that to the RPG sphere? Like, are we as vicious as the politicky account people
Ye-
online, or?
So there are similarities in style, right? Like you guys have similar contention, right? There's a lot of backbiting, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of people who won't talk to this person or I won't be on a panel with that person. That person's an evil, vile, whatever, right? And oh, this person insulted my mother 10 years ago and I will forever hold a grudge, doing their best Warhammer Dwarven impression, right? Where they got a book of grudges that they hold. So that's very similar in the political sphere, right? I felt really at home. So thank you, gang, for making me feel welcome, right? By being little petty, pretentious, right? People. But I don't know. Again, I'm new, as you said. I haven't observed it as much as you, so maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. But in the politics sphere, and this might just be because it's bigger, there's many more incidents of people taking that hatred, animosity, and anger and sending you a death threat or doxing you or, taking it that extra step that I think everyone can say is just, hey, that's not okay. Right. So I haven't seen that in the RPG community, but I have seen the backbiting, the fighting, all that. That's pretty normal to me.
I promise it happens.
Oh, fair enough. Again,
Not to
I
me,
just
thankfully. Yeah, no, I haven't been doxxed or nobody's come after me yet. But I know people it's happened to. I know good people in the space who have had other people just coming after them, calling their
why?
wives, employers, over disagreements about how we play D&D. It's just absurd to me. But it does
Do you have
happen.
a do you have a theory on that? Like, because I've always wondered, like, at what point does someone think that, okay, this person is wrong enough that I feel compelled to ruin their life or try to ruin their life or try to hurt them in some way. Like in the politics sphere, I I kind of get it. I still don't condone it by any means, but I kind of get it. Like if you really believe that if so and so becomes president, you're going to be locked up in a camp or something, like, or if you really believe that your life is in danger if this bill passes, okay. But in D and Dungeons and Dragons, like what?
I think a lot of people tie their hobbies to their
Mm.
identity in maybe an unhealthy way. And when certain aspects of how they engage with these hobbies are attacked, I think that it's not that far fetched to think that they would lash out about it. Um, just because some people, especially I think in recent years, have kind of found a lot of escapism in their hobbies. And um, many of them are tying it to their identity, like this is who I am a dungeon master and I play Dungeons and Dragons, and that is part of the core of my identity, which I think in some cases can be incredibly unhealthy. But I would say that's probably where it comes from. There is about as much tribalism in, I would say, the D&D sphere. You know what? I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go as far as to say there's as much tribalism in the RPG sphere as there is in the politics sphere, but there's an unhealthy amount uh,
So
in some senses.
that does beg the question, though, if I may. What is the difference, in your opinion, between a healthy tribalism and an unhealthy amount of tribalism, or a healthy um identity with gaming, with tabletop gaming? And where does it cross the line to becoming unhealthy? Like, what kind of behavior, what kind of mindset? What are your thoughts?
That's an interesting question, and there's a
All my
lot of
questions are
gray area
interesting.
here.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
there's a lot of gray area here too. I think that obviously, if you're coming after somebody in their real life, if you're doxing them online, obviously you've crossed the line into unhealthy amounts of tribalism. I've noticed, and this is going to kind of come back to something that I've been talking about a lot on this channel, but I have noticed that I have started a a new campaign in the past couple months that has
Mhm.
generated quite a bit of buzz. I've posted a lot about my experience with it. And there have been people who have been relatively unhappy to hear of its success because they associate certain rules with certain people that they don't like. So I think that that amount of tribalism is probably a bad thing because I would like to be able to discuss rules as rules and ideas as ideas without necessarily bringing into it um, who likes who and who dislikes who, because that stuff just gets confusing. And at a certain point, I'm not even sure like where all these spheres are anymore and who is friends with who and who hates who anymore. So
It's exhausting to keep up. You
yeah,
need
it
one of those
is.
flow charts, right? If you know the meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and he's got the
Yes.
thumbtacks on the board, and he's all like, "Okay, well, we can't put this person in the room," or it's like that riddle with
Right.
the you have a fox and a fox, a bunny, and a cabbage, and you got to get them all across the river. No, I get it. Um, I
Yeah.
guess the what I'm hearing you saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
is that one of the things that turns a healthy identity into an unhealthy one is when you start to look at the messenger instead of the message. So it doesn't so much matter what they are saying, it's who is saying it. So
I think
is,
so.
is that
Yeah.
is that accurate?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
And so I, there are a lot of different like cliques and groups in the RPG
What's your
space.
click?
Um I
What
I
group do
don't
you
I don't think
identify
I
with?
have one. I really don't think I have one.
Okay.
Like
Start
it's
one.
funny because okay, I'm going to like bring up Scooter for Mike here.
Yeah.
I actually I really like this guy. He's awesome. He's part of the bros and I have this like really weird relationship with him where
Okay, remember,
everybody
I'm new to
yeah,
this. What's
I
a
know.
bro?
Okay. A bro is God, this is gonna be hard to describe. They're a group of guys, they're only guys, by the way. A group of guys that play Dungeons and Dragons a certain way that harkens back to AD&D, and they believe and any bro can correct me on yeah, bro SR. Thank you. Any bro can correct me on being wrong on this,
An
but
OSR is old
my
school Renaissance, right?
yes.
Okay, okay.
These are the bro SR, right? They believe in playing it rules as written, back the way it was intended, with emphasis on one to one time and a couple other um, mechanics, right? And it's funny because with me, I am often accused of being a bro by people who are not in the bros, but then the people who are in the bros are like, no, no, she's not. So
No, I mean
it's,
that we
you
have
know,
like there's a parallel to my world here, right? Where um people will try to use a label as a way to smuggle in certain things about a person. So in my one of the accusations that get levied my way sometimes. You're a fascist, or you're a fascist enabler, or you're a fascist adjacent, or things like that.
yeah,
And again, they're not attacking what you're saying, what you're uh, trying to communicate. What they're doing is they're trying to stick you with a label that signals to everyone outside of that tribe that this person is an enemy. This person is bad. And
right,
it's a shortcut, but it's lazy and effective both, unfortunately, right? It fails to deal with the argument. So I guess if you were making similar arguments as the bro SR people, like the 1-to-1 time, for example, that you mentioned that you were
Hmm.
starting to play with, right? That
Yeah.
seems just the easiest thing in the world is like, oh, you know who else did 1-to-1 time? Hitler. Or I mean, bro SR, right? And then suddenly like
Right.
you don't have to argue against it because who wants to be associated with Hitler or bro SR,
Right.
right? So,
Oh,
not to say bro
exactly.
SR is Hitler.
And
I don't know. So yeah.
and actually, I want to bring up another point here. I don't think anybody thinks you were saying that. It's fine.
You would
Um,
be surprised. What like
you know what?
people will
It's the
clip
internet,
these
maybe.
things. You got to be careful. People will clip these things and then they'll post it up. And if you don't have an explanation, they'll be like, "Oh, he said the bro SR is Hitler. He's our enemy."
Maybe.
And I don't need more enemies.
Ooh.
I got enough enemies. But carry on.
Um, right. So I actually want to bring in another point here because Lord Mattis made it really well. I
Mm,
think in the TTRPG space, there is another factor too, and that is in the politics space, not everyone is trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you on their beliefs, but they're not trying to extract money from you. But in the TTRPG space, there
this is
are
my skeptical face, by the way. But go on.
okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. But in the RPG space, there are a lot of people that are trying to sell their own systems, their own modules, their own supplements for whatever system. And there are so many people that are trying to sell you what they have written or sell you on maybe even something else. And there aren't that many consumers for the amount of books that are being sold. And so I think that there is somewhat of an incentive to tear each other down just a little bit. Like, don't buy from him. He's associated with these people, things like that. So I don't know if that incentive really exists in the politics space, but it
Sure.
may contribute, I think,
Let
to
me
how vicious many
well let
people
me
are in this space. Go on.
let me lay some groundwork because I strongly
Mhm.
disagree with that. There
Okay.
is a term in the politics space, a group that we mockingly call the Highlander left. We call them the Highlander left because there can be only one true leftist, right? They're people who believe that no one is as left as me, and because I'm the most leftist person you'll ever left, and the leftist lefty that ever lefted anything, I'm the one that you should come to for takes. I'm the one that you should come to for the true leftist perspective. And you should sub to my channel and you should donate to me and give me money. So this monetary incentive, and this is why I made the skeptical face earlier, that
Mhm.
the idea that the people in politics aren't trying to sell you a little product, that's just not true. In a wide variety of cases, this is literally how people, and at least in the commentary side and the talking head side, that's their brand. That's how they make their money. So they're always trying to sell you on their brand and their ideology both, right? And
Okay.
for some, the brand is the ideology. There's no backing away from it. But yeah, I guess the only argument I can see that would kind of steelman your point would be that there is much less of an audience
Hmm.
for Dungeons and Dragons than there would
Well,
be for politics. So yeah.
and so a lot of the supplements being sold aren't even for Dungeons and Dragons. They're for other RPGs that have a much smaller player base or they're their own systems in themselves. But the problem is each person only really has the time and the money to learn like maybe a couple systems. Like there are outliers to that. There are people that know 20 to 30 RPG systems. And but that is not the majority.
Hmm,
The majority of people learns 1 to 3 RPG systems and then like stops. So
sure.
I kind of disagree with you, but also I see where you're coming from on that. Like, you're right about that. There are a lot of people in
Oh,
politics that
you're
are
gonna be
there to
saying I'm
extract
right a
money from
lot
you.
in this communication, but
Maybe
anyway, no, it's fine.
I don't know. This is enlightening. Um,
It's I I can see your point as well that there are people who are trying to build a product and
mhm,
they're trying to draw upon the same pool of people, right? So you have a large kind of at the top, you'll have this large pool of tabletop role player enjoyers, right? And then you want to funnel them into your specific brand because this not only gives you more people to play with, right? It's easier to fight a game. It's easier to get things set up. And there is something about having a buzz to what you're doing that lends excitement to it. But also, especially if you design supplements for it, if you design like things specifically designed to your way of playing, whether it be a whole ass system or simply supplements to adjust an existing system, like make 5e more bro SR friendly, and here's how you do it. And this, if you buy my guide and book on how to shave away all that woke nonsense that the girls made in the 5e, right? You can have a lot of success by paying $10 to me on Drive Through RPG and, using my system. I get it. Fair enough.
I'm using that. I'm gonna write that. I'm
Feel
gonna
free to
cut
steal
that.
whatever I
And
say.
yeah, it's your endorsement.
Indeed.
Oof, I like that one. But yeah, so this is an interesting perspective, actually. Wow. Oh, and man, I don't even know where to go from here. I like that so much. That's who 5e, but more bro friendly. No, I would no. I'm probably not actually going to do that.
Again, I don't know
Um,
anything about Bro
so
SR.
yeah, I know you
I'm just
don't.
selling it. And this
It's
this will tie
mhm.
into our later thing about persuasion. You don't need to know much to sell something, but go on.
Yeah, so that's actually what I wanted to segue into is I was on two different debates on your channel.
Yes.
Those were the only debates I have ever been in like in my life. I was maybe in like a high school debate or something. Um but Patty says that sounds like bro heresy and he's right. Don't tell them I said that.
I'm
Um
nailing it. I'm nailing up the monster man or the dungeon master's guide to the church door, right? Or their mom's basement door in the case of the bros. But it's like that, right?
mhm.
So
And actually there are some bros that are actually very friendly to 5e like
sure.
Torah's talking about crossface. Crossface has talked about how to run 5e in that sort of way and he's got a lot going for him there. But I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about the debates.
Sure.
Um so those were the first YouTube debates I've ever been on. Um and I'm gonna make myself a little bit vulnerable here in front of everyone. How did I do?
Well,
You've seen a lot of debates, so
the first question I'd ask you is how do you think you
yeah.
did?
Okay. I think I did reasonably well for my first time. I felt good about it. I felt good about the first one. The first one on racism and sexism, and I can actually bring it up if we want. I don't know if we wanna
It's your
it was
show.
yeah, I don't
If you have
know.
if you have specific moments you wanna ask me about, I'm more than willing,
Oh
right?
shit, that's how do I do this? Yeah, here we go. Like it was this one. It was the one on racism and sexism.
Okay.
It was Dungeons, Dragons and Women, Racism and Sexism in D&D. This one. I feel like I did pretty well on it. I feel like they dropped the sexism like maybe 20 minutes in or so. And I think it was because I did so well on it and they were afraid to bring it back up.
I don't know about
So
afraid, right? I don't know
yeah,
if I don't think look, Harmony, you're great. I don't think you're
yeah.
scary, first
Oh,
of all. But second of all, I think that you you first of all, you did excellent in both debates.
okay.
In fact, I would say that you probably did better in the second debate, but only because you had more um opponents that were more willing to disagree with you, right? The group I had in the first instance were pretty easygoing, live and let live. Like, okay, sure, that's your thing, right? They didn't really do a lot of pushback, but the second group did. Now, you think that you did worse in the second instance, but I think you did very well. There, the criticism I would give, and I guess we'll tie this into kind of just debates in general, right? Is if you don't think you won, no one else is going to think you won either, right? If you don't think you did well, no one else is going to think you did well, especially in the moment, right? If you think you're floundering, it's going to come across. And it isn't so much what you say during a debate, but how you say it that matters. One of the best lines you had in the first debate was when
I know what you're
someone
gonna
complained
say.
about Seiko to hit armor class 0, and you came back right away with what? You can't read a chart? You apologize for that which was a dock against you. Don't apologize.
Mm.
It's your opponent. Take him and
He was so
you
nice
own it.
though. He was so nice. Like if that had been against like anybody else in there, if I said, "Can you read a chart?" to like I don't know, what was that guy? The Sansol, the guy that was yelling last time. If I had said that to him, yeah, no problem. But I said it to the nicest guy there,
He needs to
and
know
I
he
felt
was wrong
so
still.
bad.
He needs to know he
Yeah,
was
he
wrong.
was
You do him
wrong,
no
but
kindness by coddling
mm,
him.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And but yeah, so just for the chat in the first debate, my position was that there's
Mm,
nothing really sexist about D&D and the founders, the original guys, Gygax Arneson, there's nothing sexist about them. Um, nothing that's documented, and
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't believe that it is racist either, and I'm very okay with all male or all female spaces within the hobby. And then my position on the second debate was about dice fudging. I think everybody here probably knows that I'm fairly anti dice fudging, and by fairly I mean I think you shouldn't do it. Um, but those were my positions on the debate, just for the chat. But whew,
Well, I guess
yeah,
go
mhm.
on.
I thought in this first debate I did very well because I like vibed with everyone there. I like everyone there. I thought they were kind of cool people. I got along with them quite well. But then the second debate, I think I almost let myself. Man, I got a little bit intimidated.
It's a tactic. They'll just
Yeah,
they
I
will it's like in football, you hold the ball, you got possession, right?
mhm,
And the more you can have screen time or airtime, um, it allows you the chance to get more of your points across, and it can come across to the observer as, oh, this person's running away with it. The other person can't respond. You're a polite person. I don't know you very well, Harmony. We've interacted maybe twice, three
mhm.
times. Um, you seem very polite, and that has its pros. But in the style of debate that I do specifically, you just need to kind of like elbow your way in there. That would be
Yeah,
the criticism. You just need to interrupt them. You need to shout over them. And I know you don't like that, and that's fair. I don't moderate nice for niceness like my debates aren't collegiate. I
yeah,
don't have a set time where you get this much speaking time and you get this much speaking time. I do try to get everyone to have a chance to get in there, but I largely leave it up to the participants and how much they want to contribute. So I think that that's just something you have to understand, like because there's drawbacks to having too much speaking time as well. One of the drawbacks is you have a higher chance, I should say, of putting your foot in your mouth, rolling a one on your charisma, having a critical failure, a fumble, something like that, saying something that people can latch onto and run with. Um, so it's a balance, and you got to look at the context of who you're speaking to, the audience, the setting. All these things matter when it comes to these things. So
yeah. I'm just so terrible at elbowing my way in. And I think at the second debate, I just sort of sat back at a certain point and was like, I kind of want to let these guys like just talk just because they were yelling. And I'm like, I don't think they're making their side look particularly good at all.
yep.
So I
Never
just
interrupt
sort
your
of,
enemy when they're making a
yeah,
mistake. Yeah, that makes sense.
I just kind of laid back and let them talk and let that guy be like, yeah, I am God. If I want to fudge, I can fudge because I'm God. I'm like, you know what? Let's just let you go. I
No,
don't
no, it
know.
was good. Look, at the end of the day, did you have fun?
In the first one, yes. I came away from the first one just exhilarated. I was like, um, I was in this Discord server all night and people were like watching it and like saying exactly what they thought about it. And they were telling me all these good things. And I'm
Oh,
like, man, I'm like a master debater. I got this. and um, and then in
a
the
level
second
one who
debate,
killed a few goblins and think he can slay a dragon. Okay, right? Like overconfidence will get you. But go
yeah,
on.
I felt so good about it. And then the second debate, oh man, it was the opposite. I came out of that and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It was so scary because
Well,
I mean,
mm.
yeah, because there were people like just yelling at each other in there, and I have to commend the title because um for anyone who doesn't know, because I posted about this, but Wick and I went back and forth. He messaged me and he's like, "Hi, would you like to come talk on my channel about the proper relationship between players and DM?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds fun. I'll do that." So anyway, I get into the debate and like 10 minutes in, somebody says in the chat, "base title." And I look down at the title and I'm like, "What am I doing?" The title was Wick and Harmony Ginger confront bad DMs on why they're bad. Like, wait, what did I do?
This is it's called clickbait. Okay, I'm
I
not gonna
know.
apologize for it. You
I
want to
know.
get
You don't got it.
a feisty title, right? A
Of
spicy
course.
title that people like. Oh, they're confronting people. There's conflict. Click, 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 click. And my audience, I'm a debate show. They like conflict. They're gonna click.
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't know about it. It took me by surprise, and I was like, "Oh, no. I don't know that these are bad DMs. Hey, one of them's here.
Oh, James.
Hello,
James is a good guy.
multiculturalist James. Thank you. I appreciate that." Um, I didn't mean to call you a bad DM. I never did. Um, but Mr. Max wants to be invited to a debate on sexism and racism in RPGs.
Well, I
I
already I don't know if we're gonna do
do
another
that
one
one
of those
again.
anytime
No.
soon, but I'm always looking for more new voices, and I'm always looking for topics. So if you have a spicy gaming related topic that you want to talk about, my DMs are open. It's just anyone can DM me, and anyone's welcome.
So, are you gonna do other D&D ones? And please tell me it's not the wheelchair. Don't do one on the wheelchair,
You don't
please,
want
for
to
the
talk
love
about the
of God.
wheelchair?
No.
Why not? What's your opinion on the wheelchair? Now I gotta know. I'm curious.
I think it's the dumbest debate, and I don't understand
Ableism
why
in
everybody
D&D. Okay.
I don't understand why everyone has a strong opinion about it. Like, it's such a thing for your game. Like, why does everybody care?
What would you do if a player came to your table and insisted that their character was
What have I
wheelchair
done?
bound?
So I have had a player whose character didn't have legs before. He used he made his own like artificial legs. It was like an artificer. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on if I
No,
trusted the player to handle the
they wanna
situation.
play a wheelchair bound guy,
I mean, is it
right?
a combat wheelchair or just a wheelchair? Why did I do this? I've done this to myself. Someone
I don't
kill
know.
me.
You brought it up.
I
This
did.
is
I
your
did. It was my
show.
fault. It depends on the player. If it's just like somebody who's coming into my games who I don't know, who's like, I want the combat wheelchair and you're gonna give me this because you're an ableist if you don't, then there's the door. But if it's like a player I trust who's like, yeah, I want to play a character without legs and we don't have to like make a big deal out of it, but here's kind of what I need, then like maybe it kind of depends on the campaign. I'm not going to make a call on it, you know. Anyway, please do not do a debate panel on it.
I'm I
I'm begging
First
you.
of all, no one tells me what to do,
You're
okay?
right. I
You're
can't.
not
I
my
can tell
mom.
you nothing.
But
You're correct.
second of all, um, to segue out of this, perhaps give you an escape route if you choose to take it.
Mhm.
This does
Oh
bring
my
up a
god.
question though. How much latitude do we as DMs allow players? Like, at what point do you tell your player no? There's a lot of people who would say that you should use the yes and method. Don't tell your players no, say yes and, or yes but. Yes, go with what they want, but then put the restrictions around it or build upon it and things like that. I don't I don't know if that's wise. I've personally, I run a very strict table, right? They're
Mhm.
both for the player and the character, right? So the players, no phones. You're not allowed to have your phones, right? You're not allowed to have those distractions. Like, I used to allow people to bring their iPhones or their laptops because they had their character sheets on there. No, they would get distracted far too easily, far too often. And when I'm there, and especially if I put my time into creating this session, you're gonna pay attention. And if you don't want to, that's fine. You don't like the game, you don't have to play. But if you want to play, then you're there to play. So I guess I'm asking you as a DM, how much latitude do you allow your players both in the terms of how they play at the table and what their characters can be or such as that? Go ahead.
So I think this differs a lot from DM to DM, but in my table, I enforce very strict rules, and I do so on the players and on myself. I follow very strict rules about dice. I follow the rules of the game. If I mess up the rule of the game and the player calls it out, then it is what it is. They're right. And we will conform to the rules of the game. And I think doing so is incredibly powerful because it allows the players the ability to plan and to it basically allows them the ability to plan without asking me. If they can trust that the rules of the game will be followed, then they can do some very cool things in between sessions, and they don't necessarily have to tell me about it or ask my permission. If it's within the rules of the game, they know the answer is yes. If it's not within the rules of the game, they know the answer is no. And I think that not playing Mother May I with your DM gives players more freedom, not less.
Interesting.
So I'm
There
I'm a
would
proponent of strict and concise rules.
there is something you mentioned in there though that gives me pause. That
Yeah.
if it's not in the rules, it's no.
Um,
Um,
if the rules are against it, I think I probably misspoke
fair
on
enough.
that
Fair enough. Or
because
maybe I misheard
that
you.
I believe is the purpose of Rule 0
Sure.
is if a situation isn't covered by the rules of the game, that's where Rule 0 comes in, and I believe that that is the purpose of that.
Okay. No,
Um,
now that you've corrected yourself, I have no
yeah,
issues. No, makes sense.
that was probably a misspeaking on my part. Um, but yeah, so is that roughly how you do it? Like, I'm actually super curious about how you DM Wick.
It's been a while since I've
Mhm. Oh, really?
ran
Are
a
you a
game.
player?
It's been a while since I played.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, in the last year or so, I've been busy trying to get my YouTube off the ground, right? Trying to get the business side of things going. And that's sucked most of my time. Like I'm a big believer in commitment. So what I mean by that is if I say I'm going to play in your game, even as a player, I'll discuss this from the player side, right? If I'm going to play in your game, I'm going to make sure I'm on time. I'm there every week unless there's a dire emergency. Um, I am going to stay for the full time and I'm going to be invested in that time. That's the bare minimum I will give you as a player. And I think that it's important because too many times I've seen fellow players just treat things as kind of like they go in and out so much. And I get it. People have busy lives, there's things to do, but I don't know. It's one of the things where if you're gonna play a game like this, if you're gonna play a tabletop RPG, you should make a commitment to it, and it should be something important to you. And
I
it
disagree.
you hmm?
I disagree, actually.
Why?
I'm so I run games specifically for people who have real lives.
Hmm.
And I think that there are specific ways that you can run games that facilitate drop in, drop out play. For
Oh, if you're like
my
a West Marches campaign or something, fair.
Yeah, so for my big campaign that I've been posting about a lot on Twitter, that's
Hmm.
gotten a lot of attention, my one-to-one time game, something I've noticed that that does for me is I can tell my players that, all right, yeah, we're having a game on this day. This is the day we normally have a game. You don't need to tell me if you can make it or not. Show up if you can and want to. Don't show up if you don't want to. I have 7 total players, and normally we have a good group of 4 or 5. But the great thing is they end every single time. They have to go back to town. They have to find a good place to end every single time. And that's part of the player's responsibility. But in doing so, they ensure that they can go with however many or few players show up. And so we can have a game. It doesn't matter. Nobody ever has to be zombied or puppeted or anything. But every single time, if you go with that method, which is actually kind of canonical to how it was originally conceived. In the first edition DMG, it says 1 day of real time equals 1 day of game time, and if you do that, you can have people drop in or drop out at will, and it works very very well.
Again, I'm not familiar with that
Mhm.
style of play, so perhaps my answer would change, but
Yeah.
most of the games that I've played in and the games that I've ran have been ones of high commitment games. I
Mhm.
ask for high commitment, and you tend to get what you ask for in these situations. Like I know there are different play styles, but one of the play styles that don't do well at my table are the observer, the watcher, or as they were called in fourth edition, right? The person who just wants to get in there, drink some beers, eat some pretzels, roll some dice. Um, Nothing wrong with that. It's not a moral thing. But I prefer players who want to invest into the game and into the world that I bring to the table, right? I enjoy that. That's part of my enjoyment as a dungeon master, is seeing the people interact with the world that I create. And I mean, I'm glad you're having fun if you're there just to kind of chill with the homies, but I don't know, we can chill with the homies doing other things if you want, play a video game or something, right? Like we can get some
Sure.
Mario Kart going. So for
Yeah,
me, I like the high commitment level, but that's just personal preference.
of course. I'm never gonna argue with your personal preference is wrong. I will say I've noticed in my
Why not?
games that there
Sometimes it
tend to
is. That's
be.
fine.
That's true. Sometimes you can be objectively wrong with your preference, and I'll die on that hill. But in my games, I've noticed that there's like two types of players. I can lump almost every player I have into one of two categories, and that is drivers or passengers. And I
Mm,
think that you're kind of getting to this. I think that my games always seem to go best when I have about half and half, like people who are there just for the ride, and they don't really care about
their
making decisions
bodies.
today, and
Yeah.
they're not just bodies, they're role playing, they're adding, and but they don't really care that much about the direction that the game goes in. They're there to have fun with friends, and then the drivers are the ones that are like, I want to do this, and my character, he needs to go here, and we need to fight this because my character needs the sword that has been rumored to be in this layer. Those are the driver players, and I think that games seem to work best when you have both. Because if you have too many
Yes,
drivers, they're all like trying to take it in all different directions. But if you
but
have too many passengers, nobody cares.
well, here's the thing. A good player can and does do both, because I
Yeah,
hear what you're saying is that you can't be the focus of every session as a player. You simply can't. It's a group game. I think there's a few ways to handle that. So first of all, a good player can be a driver, but temporarily be a passenger when they need it to. If
sure.
we're going to use this terminology, and I might be
I
using
don't
it
think it's real
incorrectly for
terminology. I
clarity.
just made it up.
Sure, no, but part of good persuasion and communication is speaking the language of your interlocutor. And that's what I'm attempting to do here, Miss
All
Ginger.
right.
But let me continue. If I was a DM, one of the things that I emphasize is that you are in not every game, right? This isn't appropriate for every game I run, but in a lot of games, I everyone is part of a team. They are a group. And I stress the group aspect more than the individual, right? And so that way, instead of driving for my character needs this, the group needs this, right? And that kind of switch in thinking really kind of incentivizes a different style of the player, of how the player interacts at the gaming table. It becomes less of a individual thing and more of a group. Now, again, there are times when that doesn't work for whatever kind of campaign or the style of campaign you're trying to run. There's a lot of campaigns that benefit for having some intrigue between the players, right? Where not everyone knows what's going on. Like sometimes they work at even cross purposes, and I understand that. But again, I want to say that if you can't be a good driver when you need to be a good driver, what you're doing is you're putting the onus of making the game interesting onto everyone else, not just the DM, but the other players as well. If you have a group of entire passengers, you're never going to get anywhere.
Mhm.
The game's not going to be fun or interesting. However, if you have a group of all drivers, I think that has much more potential. There are
Oh,
problems with that too, but it has much more, like you could actually get somewhere. Whereas all the passengers, nah. So personal preference, but if I had to pick an ideal group, an ideal game, it would be a bunch of main class passengers with drivers, I should say, with passengers as a side class. So main class driver,
mhm.
side class passenger. So yeah.
Interesting. I usually do best when like about half of people are drivers and half are passengers. But I mean, also I have many players that do fill the role of both and that are
Mm.
happy to be passengers in someone else's quest, but then we'll take them along later. And
Because if I may
apparently
add
this
to
is
this, I'm
actual
sorry.
terminology. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Just to not to interrupt you or anything. Well,
Mhm.
I am interrupting, but I think it's
That's fine.
important. Um, I think that uh, even when someone else is in the technical driver's seat and driving the group forward, like we're on a quest to get Charlie his sword, right? Charlie's sword was taken by the bad guys and they stole it, but it was his heirloom from his father, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. A good player will help drive. It will add acceleration to whoever's currently in the driver's seat. Whereas a passenger, someone who is passive, is almost always, and I'm gonna make some people mad. They're a burden. They're a burden. And I know you're like, well, no, I like them. They're my friends. The players are nice. They make funny jokes. That doesn't help the game. That helps you just like them as people. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But an ideal game, that's not what they're there for. They're there to help the game.
Oh, I so disagree with that.
You can
I
disagree, but
funny
you'd be
jokes help the
wrong.
game. But yeah, that's fine. Funny jokes help the game. It's just how it is. Um, but yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective on that for sure.
Hmm.
Um, man, so when you play, you think of everyone entirely as like one group going to
Not always. In some campaigns, though. Yes.
okay. Looks like Mr. Max agrees with you. Oh, if Mr. Max disagrees with
Wise
me, I don't know
man.
what I'll do. Yeah, I quite like what I've seen of him. But I don't know. Maybe we're not defining it exactly the same way, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die on this hill. This is just something I've noticed.
So here here
Um,
here like,
mhm,
here's what I see though with the
yeah.
passengers, right? The passive
Okay.
players is exactly as Mr. Max said. You're in a fight. You have been cornered, okay? The guards have caught your thief and they are about to take him to jail. You've set up your ambush. You're trying to release him. You got the plan together. The passenger's turn comes by. What are we doing again?
Okay.
What are we
Okay.
doing again? Is it my turn?
Okay.
I cast an
Yeah. There's players.
acid arrow, right? No, I don't want you at my table if you don't pay attention.
All right. I'm not talking about people that don't pay attention. Um, for sure. No, I gotcha. I'm on the same page with you there. That's not what I'm really referring to. Um, but yeah, if that's how you define it, I'm kind of thinking like more supportive players. But that's all right. We'll kind of drop this and go on to the next
Sorry.
thing because I actually was intrigued by something you said. You think of this as like a fully group game. Do you consider in your games or games that you've been in that each player should be working towards their own goals separate from the group, or do you kind of approach this as a group game where everybody is working together towards the same goal? I know that might be a bit of a convoluted question.
Well, there's a lot to it. There's layers.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know.
so I warn you, my answer isn't going to be
No.
as one to one as you'd like. Um, it's both, and you're gonna think that's a cop out answer, but let me explain. Within the overarching whatever objective the group has decided. So it's important also not as a DM not to decide the objective for the group. The group should decide its own objectives, right? You should present situations where they have choices, actual choices, not quantum ogre shit, right? Like but
Mhm.
actual decisions that they can make. And the group in and of itself, you should encourage them, and there's ways to do this. There's techniques to encourage them to have a common shared objective. Now, that does not exclude having personal objectives that may or may not come into tension with that main goal. And in fact, some of the emergent story that comes from playing the game comes from the tension between the group's goal and perhaps conflicting goals within the players. And there's a lot of times that I've seen where a character had to make a choice. Do I sacrifice my personal wants for the good of the group? Because it's not an interesting decision if it's an easy decision. It's not an interesting decision if like it fulfills both roles. What becomes interesting is yes, they could go help free the thief that had gotten captured that you guys failed to rescue because the passenger player didn't know what was going on and forgot to listen to your guys' plan, right? You could go do that, but the guy who knows where your long lost sister was, okay? He's only in town for the next few hours, and if you go down that route, you may not have time to contact him. You may have that go away. And this can bring up a lot in the future, either choice they make, whether they abandon the group to go do that. Say even if the thief got rescued, even without their help, they would there would be some inter-party tension there, right? Like, hey, I was captured. Why didn't you come rescue me? That creates interesting dynamics within the party, right? Or if they decide to help and then their character has reason to resent the party, hey, I had to give this up for you. What have you done for me lately, right? And it creates a lot of these interesting kind of interplayer dynamics that can come up. So I think it's important to have both, and you have to have some kind of shared objective, or the game doesn't really work.
Okay.
Not as well, in my opinion. What do you think?
So I think so first of all, I'm actually curious as to if your examples are from personal experience
No, I
here
just
because okay, this sounds so specific. Like what did this thief do? I'm curious. But also, I think that the group of players, and I might be stealing wording from somebody. I think Ryan Howard probably uh, put this wording in my head, but I think the group is kind of together by necessity at the beginning. I mean, they're fairly low level adventures. It's not like it's super easy to find an adventuring group, but they're together by necessity. But they each should have their own goals that they're working towards. Like each one of them, I mean, I think if you're a wizard, you probably want eventually to have your own wizard tower and apprentices working for you, probably. Or if you're a fighter, you might want to command an army, right? I think each of you should have your own goals later on. And they might be ones like that, or they might be something that's more like backstory related. Like you might want to find your long lost father, or you might want to overthrow the king and take his place, something like that. Each player should have their own goal, and that's really player led. That's not DM led. It's not my job to give
I agree.
player characters those goals,
I agree.
um, and those might put characters in contention with each other later. But I think that D&D kind of works best for me at low levels when you are at a when you're in a group that's together by necessity. But then at higher levels, you can kind of branch out into domain play. Now, what I've been doing is in my game that I've been posting a lot about, I've been kind of introducing almost but not quite domain play and low levels with each player has their character, but they also made and control a god in the world. So my whole pantheon is player controlled, which is crazy, and I'm not 100% sure if I'd recommend that other people do that. Um, but it's just a completely different experience from
It'd
about
work
every other
better if
game
they
I've
were
run.
all driver players, just saying, okay? Putting
Oh,
them all
they
in charge of guards that have clear things that they want. I don't know, just my opinion.
man, I don't know. So they're all war gamers. So
Oh,
those players were very specifically picked for that game based on the fact that I know that they can handle PvP. Um, whew, it
how
looks like we're
connected do you
Mhm.
have and I believe I may have asked you this
Yeah.
in your last week episode, but I don't quite recall the answer, so please refresh my memory. How close, how connected are the players' gods to the players' characters, right? If at all.
Some of them more so than others. There are some
Mhm.
players that play like clerics that worship their own gods. A couple players will do that. But then some are very disconnected. Like, for example, there's one guy who's just playing a rock man. His race is Rockman, his class is Rockman.
Okay.
It's custom. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
They kind of figured out a way to put in Rockman as a race and a class, but he's just Rockman, and he don't worship anyone. He didn't know any gods. He's just Rockman, but he plays the god completely separately from Rockman. I believe the character's name is Blank Slate. It's pretty
That's a
good.
pun. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. But so it kind of differs from player to player.
Okay.
Sometimes they're like really, really connected. Sometimes they're not. And do players want the responsibility? I'm just going to put this on the screen.
Sure.
Players want the responsibility to control gods, so they're playing a normal PC. In my game, that was specifically how the campaign was pitched. So I assume that players that do not want that responsibility did not come to that game. So it's very game dependent. I would assume all players don't. But anyway, Wick, as we are running out of time, is there something else you wanted to talk about, or something that didn't get covered that you would like to bring up
Look,
here
I'm
late?
just
Yeah.
here to talk. Whatever you want to
Right.
discuss, we can discuss. Whatever you don't want, we don't have to. It's up
Okay.
to you.
I am curious. Are you going to
Sure.
do more D&D debates on your channel or no?
I have considered it. I've
Okay.
considered running a game, or at least trying to get someone else to run the game, like bullying someone into it, to
Mhm.
stream, right? To have a kind of like a streamed experience, an actual play or whatever they have, right? But I don't know. There are pros and cons to that. There
Yeah,
are. I think it changes the dynamic of a game when you stream it,
I do too.
and
That's
not
why I don't
always
stream
for the
games.
best. Not
Yeah.
always for the best. However, there are a lot of people who enjoy that kind of content, and it has the benefit of drawing people who are more interested in that kind of content to your channel. And so there is that at play. I don't know. It's something I've been thinking of. But regarding D&D topics, look, I'll say this. If there is anything that people have strong opinions about and they want me to host a show on it, I am more than willing. I stream like 4 to 5 days a week usually. I need topic ideas. Bring them to me. I'll host. I'll host any day of the week, okay? You give me a topic, you give me a position that you find interesting, and I think that there's something there, I'll do it. So you guys can check me out and DM me, right? And yeah, in Harmony, if you're like, those people on Twitter, they're saying all this bullshit about this game, we need to fight about it. I'll referee. Don't worry.
Oh, I don't think I don't think that's in my personality at all to say, but there are D&D people in Discords who are surprised at the idea of a D&D debate. Really? Oh man, the community is so contentious sometimes though. They like it's amazing how much they fight. But I mean, I'm always down for it. I enjoyed the two experiences I had on your channel. I was delighted that you invited me both times.
I'm
Even
glad.
after the second debate, I'm sorry?
No, I'm glad. No, I'm just go ahead.
Oh.
Sorry.
Even after the second debate, I was like nervous. I was shaking afterwards. I was like, I've never been on anything like that. I was, some people were a little bit hostile. Most weren't, but I mean, it was kind of scary. But I mean, I'm still excited to come back.
Good.
You
Well,
can't think
I'm
of anything.
excited to have you
Oh,
back.
sorry.
And if you ever want to branch out from non-gaming topics, look,
Mhm.
we can make some content, okay?
Yeah, and it's hard to think of any topics that have to do with RPGs that haven't already been done to death, like Eva's saying here in the chat. Um,
People
like
say
I'm.
this.
Mhm.
People say this, but like I'll give you the kind of like the mirror of in the politics world. So red pill stuff, right? Manosphere topics, feminism, all that,
Mhm.
right? That's done to death in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And people, there's a group of people who are like, again, another topic about this. Wick, what are you doing? But every time I host one of these debates, I get thousands of views, hundreds of dollars. The interest is clearly there, regardless of what they say. Okay. So,
Yeah.
yes, it's very possible that people have seen these debates been done to death in the RPG world. But have they seen it with Harmony versus, I don't know, whoever your enemies are? Okay. Have
My
they seen that?
enemies.
I don't know if they will have. And I think that makes it interesting again.
I feel like most of my enemies have me blocked. I don't know if I have any real enemies.
You'd,
People just block me and move
you'd be
on.
surprised. Okay.
Really?
I've heard whispers. Okay.
Oh no.
I've heard whispers. Dark words, right? You're born upon wings of
Why do you do
crows and
this to me?
ravens.
I'm gonna be scouring the internet. Who hates me? But no, it's fine. Oh,
I
here
don't
we
care
go.
what they
Here we
say
go.
about you. I think you're a good person. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, can you play D&D correctly if you are not Catholic?
What?
No,
What's
that's
even the
that's a real
argument
argument.
here?
So the real okay, I'm gonna try to explain the argument at the end here. We're gonna end off with this. I'm gonna try and
Sure, sure,
explain
sure.
the argument to the best of my ability. Um, it, Note that I do not necessarily agree with it. But the argument is that Christianity in general has guiding principles that geez, it's about good versus evil. So good versus evil has been eroded in newer editions of D&D and newer it as the culture shifts to where people are playing good tieflings and evil angels and things like that, right? But the argument, I believe, is only Christians understand how good and evil is supposed to work. Am I paraphrasing that right, Mr. Max? Because I'm not really a proponent of that argument
Am I
necessarily,
allowed
and
to
I'm
say the
trying to
R
do it
word on your stream?
justice. Please do not on my
Okay.
stream. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I can understand where you fall on that argument though
All right.
by that question. I try to paraphrase it to the best of my ability, but I don't think I'm well versed in it enough to really do it justice though. Um,
I'd have to
the
hear it
fur-
from a true believer because on the face of it, it
yeah,
sounds.
the further away we move from Christianity, the more adventures are about pie baking contests. That's
Well, no.
hmm.
I think what we're doing is we're looking at something that both of these things have occurred, but I don't think they're related in the way that is being suggested here. There is the what I would call the Drizzidification of D&D, right? Where everyone wants to play the exception. Everyone wants to play, well, I'm not the evil orc. I'm the good orc, right? I'm not this, the typical, the stereotype, the archetype. I'm unique and different. I don't think that has anything to do with moving away from Christianity. I think it has a lot to
Okay.
do with how media has presented Dungeons and Dragons, the popularization of gaming in general, and I think that these are much more influential than moving away from Christianity. So
Yeah, I'm going to kind of hold off giving an opinion on that topic specifically, I think, because I'm not sure if I'm well versed enough in the
yeah.
argument. But it's still an interesting one that I'd like to hear more about. I don't know that I would be in a debate on that one.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. If people in the
Mhm.
audience are true believers or no true believers who want to espouse that view, I would love to have them on my show and talk to them about that because, wow.
You heard it here first. Can only Christians play D&D on Wix channel? Here we go. All right, and with that, I think we're about out of time. And wow, that was a way to end. Thank you for the announcement on that. But I think we're about out of the time. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. I'll be back next week. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing next week. I'm still kind of feeling out how to do this YouTube thing, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's been a fun journey. But yeah, I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.